Yo, what is up YouTube? My name is Sheen, and before we start the video, if you are an Arabic viewer, we made subtitles just for you. Hope you enjoyed the video.
Hello there.
Are you bronze? Are you silver? Are you Goda?
Yeah.
No problem, you came to the right place. In this video I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know about Nunu. We are gonna talk about runes, passing, build, mid-game counters, and objective control. Without further ado, let's dive into the video. First of all, let's talk about the runes. This is the best rune page for Nunu. No matter what the matchup is, you always take Phase Rush into Nimbus Cloak, into Celerity, into Water Walking, and I always recommend Secondary Domination, Cheap Shot into Relentless Hunter, Attack Speed into Adaptive Force and R. Let's explain each one alone. Phase Rush, so you can always proc your E and hit your second E, and you can always use it to escape. It works both ways. Nimbus Cloak, so you can gap close with your flash. Either ways, you can use it aggression or you can use it for escape. Celerity, as we talked about, the more movement speed on Nunu, the easier you can hit your W. Water Walking is really good because you always start snowballing from reverse. Secondary, there is two choices. As we said, Domination, Cheap Shot into Relentless Hunter. Again, Cheap Shot is good damage, and again, movement speed is always good on Nunu. Finally, this part, you take attack speed for better clear, and you take adaptive force, and you take armor. This depends on the matchup of the enemy jungle. If the enemy jungle is AD, you take armor. If the enemy jungle is AP, you take MR. You can go into Triumph and Tenacity. This is not bad, but I never recommend it, because if you need Tenacity, you should just go into Mercury Threat's first item. Now let's talk about the passing. Nunu's passing is not that hard at all. Nunu's passing is 3 camps into gank. Normally you pass into bot lane, but if you have a hard matchup top lane, something like Irelia versus Jax, something like Fiora versus Camille, something that snowballs too hard, or the enemy top laner have ignite, you have to pass into bot lane. Otherwise, you just pass into bot lane. What is your pass and why? Your pass should be from your red into your chickens and from your chickens into your grump. Or if you are passing top lane, it should be from your blue into your grump and your grump directly into your chickens. And then you try to gank. How do you do this passing and make the gank work? Let's say you're gonna pass bot lane. You ask your top lane into going to lane, and you ask your bot lane into doing a fake leash and using mana on the bot. If the enemy are tracking the jungler, they guess the wrong way you started, so they let their guard down and the gank should be easier. After we explain the passing, let's see the execution of this passing.
Oh, you touch my tra-la-la.
Hey! Astaghfirullah!
As we just saw, this was a perfect execution of the passing. We already got a kill on Samira. This is a big lead for yourself and for your team. What happened if your teammates were the one who are pushing the lane and the enemy laners were under the top? Let's see in this next clip how can you adapt to this situation. Now let's talk about the build. Nunu is not a champ that have a constant build that you always build it every game. Every game is different from each game. If you have like enemy AP fed, you have to go Spirit Visage second. If you have enemy AD that crits, you have to go Random's Omen second. But the only constant is your mythic item. You always start in your first pack as Sunfire. You always build Sunfire on your ideal first pack is Blammy Sender into Darksteel if you have like 1.5k gold. Then your second item you should build is always Boots. Boots is two choices. First Mercury Threads, or second Plate Steel Caps, or as most of the people know it, Ninja Tabby. Then you go into full Sunfire Cape. If enemy have a lot of healing, something like Kayn, something like Eune, something like Soraka that heals a lot, you have to build Bramble Vest before you build your Sunfire Cape. And if you have like more than one champion in the enemy team that heals a lot, you have to build to your full Thorn Mail after you finished your Sunfire Ages. After you finished your Sunfire, second item is different. As we said, if enemy have a lot of healing, you have to go into Thorn Mail. If enemy doesn't have a lot of healing and have a lot of bruisers, you go into Deadman Plate, and Deadman Plate is one of the perfect items on Nunu because the movement speed help you always hit your W. But there is a new item called Anathema's Chain. This item is so fucking broken, I would always recommend it and put it on the most enemies that deal damage. After that, it's depend on the game. If they have a lot of OP, you go into Spirit Visage. If they have a lot of AD damage crit, you go into Random's Omen. If they have mixed damage, you go into Gargoyle. And of course, Darksteel that we didn't talk about at all. Darksteel is one of the most broken items in the game and the most gold efficient. Even after the nerf, it's not that bad, it just punished more for you dying. You never ever upgrade Darksteel into Magi's except if you have 10 stacks and you are certain that you won't die. Here is a small peek of the full build that we just talked about. Nunu is not a champion that you wanna get to late game with him. Nunu is a early and mid game champ. Normally what you look for in a mid game is a Nunu. You look for a normal gank. After you gank, you always look for an objective because Nunu is an objective control monster, but we're gonna explain the objective control in the last part of this video. So normally what you look for is a normal gank. Or you look for a counter gank. Or you look for a free dive and try to repeat it when you can. Or you look to wait a team fight and then rush Baron and it's GG well play. Nunu is not a champion that have a lot of counters, but Nunu have a lot of hard matchups. Let's talk about the most annoying champ you can play versus as a Nunu, and then let's talk about the support matchup. First of all, in the mid lane, if you see Anivia versus you and you pick Nunu, you are pure anting, because Anivia is one of the hardest matchup for Nunu, because every time you snowball, she just press W and your snowball is gone. Then we're gonna talk about the support matchup, because mainly Nunu, any Nunu players would camp bot. Most 3 annoying champs to play versus is first Janna, because her Q always cancels your snowball. The second champion is Morgana. Morgana is really annoying pick when you play Nunu, because her E or her spell shield counters all your CC and all your spells. And Lux is kinda annoying matchup because her Q can hit you max range when you W. And finally Zyra is kind of annoying because she can cancel your R and she can cancel your snowball with her E. Now let's talk about the jungle matchup. There is a lot of hard matchups for Nunu, but there is a lot of easier matchup for Nunu. Of course, one of the hardest counters for Nunu is Kayn, because Kayn skills so much better than Nunu, and especially Red Kayn. Blue Kayn kinda counters him because he can always escape from Nunu, but Red Kayn is one of the hardest counters to Nunu. Also, Ivern is a good counter for Nunu because his Q can always stop your snowball. Olaf is a good counter because he always can lifesteal all your damage and you could never 1v1 him. Your R is useless versus him because of his R. And finally, Trundle. Trundle is kinda annoying matchup because of his pillar. He can just E your snowball and you are out of the fight, or your engage is ruined. But any of these matchup are winnable except of Anivia. I would never ever recommend playing versus Anivia. Nunu is an objective control monster. He can solo dragons or heralds so easily. But before we take this objective, we have to make sure we know where the jungler is while understanding prio and vision control. Tracking the jungler is not that hard. Any jungler always pass toward his farm. If he has no farm topside, so he has to pass both sides. So it's free herald for now. Prio means wave state. If your lane have a wave crashed under his tower, or he is low HP, or have a lot of gold, never force an objective. And finally, vision control. Always have a pink ward in your inventory if you are planning to take an objective, and always pull the Drake so it doesn't get stolen from you. Nunu is an objective monster because he can Q into smite, which gives 1.82 damage at your max Q level. And you should always smite Q because your Q deals more damage than your smite, so you minimize the risk of it getting stolen. But you always win the 50-50 smite because of the smite Q combo. Last thing you need to know about objectives: dragons and heralds are useless if your team are behind, so always look for a gank first, then you look for the objective after, not the other way around. Hope I have been a help to you, and if you have any question, of course, let me know in the comments, and see you in the next video.